one of the first people I talked to that started to really change my perspective was an Ethiopian woman, and I talked to her about I was saying something about Christianity in the Bible, and then she begins to tell me about how the Christian people came to her country and raped all her people and destroyed their town and brought the Bible in, and and it was like her perspective was so drastically different than what I thought anybody's perspective ever would be, because I just thought, oh yeah, well, Christians come into countries with like peace and they bring schools and like the missionary works and stuff like this, but that was not her direct interaction with this. And
What do you
so
mean by her direct interaction when Ethiopia took Christianity in right after Armenia in 30 whatever?
mhm.
She obviously doesn't have a direct. Is that her interpretation, or is she saying that today in Ethiopia Christians are?
This was in her lifetime. She was this is what she knows as a young girl, is that not only her but some of her family members were raped. She was displaced. She was kicked. She was migrated out of Ethiopia as an immigrant, and what was replaced there was Christianity, Christian ideology. Those things didn't exist where she was in
Uh,
Ethiopia. So not all, of
okay,
course, not
okay,
all of
that
it.
that
Right.
cannot be accurate to any history. Like that sounds insane to me. Ethiopia is one of the oldest,
Hmm.
most ancient Christian nations. That the exact opposite happened. The Muslims kept trying to kill and take over, and they have successfully gotten a good hold of like half of it.
But in modern times, Christianity is not the only religion in Ethiopia.
Exactly because Muslims have been raping and killing and converting.
Yeah, but I can only attest to the account that I received from a
I
person
guess I'm
directly.
saying I would be very skeptical of that account because it doesn't match with any logical history of Ethiopian Christian history. She's
Uh,
saying there was no Christianity, and then they got raped and killed and converted into Christianity when Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian nations. It's just absurd.
well, yeah, but you're saying all of Ethiopia, but that's not the case. Just only portions of Ethiopia was initially introduced to Christianity. It wasn't all of Ethiopia.
It was
It
the entire nation. When we
it was
say that
much
the
much
nation
different
took
than
Christianity, we're talking about as a national religion. Because
no, much
Armenians were
different than
Christian way before 301, but as a national religion by the king was accepted in 301. Same with Ethiopia right after.
well, then you can only imagine like how many people were killed in that cause. Even then.
The way Christianity took is recorded to have taken place by historic books, by all accounts in Armenia. There is no violence by Bartolomeo or Tadevos who came to preach Christianity. Absolutely no violence whatsoever. There was violence by the rejectors. For example, when Tadevos came with Bartolomeo came to preach Christianity in Armenia, the king's daughter converted to Christianity, and both her and Tadevos got killed, martyred because of that. But that has nothing. That's not like the Christians came and inserted their Christianity. They have died in the process for sticking to their Christianity, but they have there's I've never seen any historic evidence or record of Christians spreading Christianity through rape and violence. That is, yeah, I don't think you can show me that. I don't think you can show me that. And I don't care
That's
about some anecdotal woman who spoke about it. And I would be very skeptical of that woman, but I would need to see historic recorded accounts by, I'm not talking about, again, exploitation and power grab. I'm talking about Christians spreading Christianity through that method.
hmm. Well, I guess we're gonna have to disagree there, because
I mean, you're going to
yeah.
have to bring proof if you're going to say something like that
Well,
because
you're saying there's no violence because of Christianity, but I keep bringing to the point of the Crusades. Like we can't ignore that. We can't ignore that that was
that's
all.
not.
that was all in the name of Christianity. It was absolutely 100% all in the name of Christianity. There was no other talk of anybody but Jesus in that whole Crusaders. It was all about bringing Christianity, establishing churches in foreign territory, and
So
making
exploiting Christianity to assert power.
regardless of whether it's an exploitation or not, it is still violence caused in the name of Christianity.
And this is, again, a power that today we can see that has nothing to do with Christianity. The Pope says obnoxious, ridiculous things that has nothing to do with Christianity. This is just a powerful sector that did everything just like any other king would have done at the time to assert power. In this case, it was, let's say, in the name of Christianity. Okay, fine. I can give you that. And then, but you can distinctly see the nations who were like, nope, we're going to stay independent because we actually want to practice what is preached. And you can see those cultures. And in those cultures' history, that includes Ethiopia, there's not going to be, especially modern day, that's even more so, Christians raping and killing so that you become Christian. I I would like to
Yeah,
see
but it's not
any
it's not
proof
like
of
they're
that.
coming. That's what I'm saying. Like militant groups don't come in to convert people. That's not their goal. It is to establish territory and So it's not like an Islamic person is going to come in using, methods of jihad and blowing up centers to convert people. That's not what it's about. It's about a presence, and it's about a um, ideology that's not trying to be sold, but trying to be forced. And that's essentially how Christianity was spread in the fourth century, was through violence. Like Christianity spread throughout the whole country through means of violence, and then established churches in those areas where they had conquered. And then when those churches are established, then they start bringing all the good, peaceful messages to all the people who are going to convert. Now, if you don't convert, you're kind of out. But then there's all these revolts within Christianity that aren't necessarily happening in other religions. That's the difference that I see, is that within Christianity there is a revolt. There is a, listen, this violence is not okay, and maybe this is not what Christianity is supposed to be out. And that's why you have people like Jan Hus, who was a Moravian in Central Europe, and then you have Martin Luther. Everybody knows Martin Luther. Martin Luther was the big split from the Catholic Church and back into a Protestant understanding, and those people were persecuted, heavily, heavily, heavily persecuted. They were killed and
Because
massacred.
they stood up to power who was antichrist. It was there
Correct,
were. So
correct.
here's the thing. I can understand the confusion. I can understand the confusion. I we're definitely today are not going to agree on certain things. No Christ follower would be doing any of that. To me, that's very important. And if some blood hungry person sees an opportunity to establish, I mean, look at the Vatican. Look at the wealth there. They
Hmm.
robbed all of Rome and brought it to Vatican. I cannot take gangs of thugs that wanted to insert their power at any means necessary and used whichever tool they needed to use at that moment, in fact, to hurt that movement, not help it, versus another religion, let's say that today people are following, that the religion itself is violent. And you see that over and over in history. The goal was to convert and assimilate people into Islam.